Greetings, everyone. I'm really excited today to start class number 1 in my Eschatology course, Eschatology being a branch of theology. So, welcome to Introduction to Eschatology. So, what exactly is eschatology? To summarize it in very few terms, eschatology is study of the end times. What's going to unfold in the future, right? So essentially, I'm going to make sure that you learn all the overarching generalities around eschatology, about the end times. And I want to make sure that you go home with a lot of food for thought to think about things in between classes. So I'll basically delve into how eschatology, the end times, are discussed theologically, since this is a theology course. So we deal with how human beings relate with a greater, higher order. Some people call it God, some people call it the universe, but nonetheless, it's something that has some divinity associated to it. So, the reason why eschatology is an important branch of theology is because it has implications at the ground level, at the societal level, at the human level. And we really want to look at the movements that may happen in society, especially when it comes to politics and that type of landscape. So, some of you good fellows may be asking yourselves some important questions. For example, what are we headed towards as a society? What does the future hold for us? These are all eschatological questions, not only theological, but eschatological, because they deal with future outcomes and the end times and the future. So, where are we going as a society? Is the future bright or is it dark? And what will happen soon rather than later? Where will I be in 5, 10, 15 years from now? So these are all eschatological questions that we try to deal with. So let me ask you a question, and a very important one. After all these questions, have you ever asked yourself, what will the end of the world look like? You know, the end of the world has really fascinated a lot of minds, literary minds, cinema, literature, novel writing. Lots of authors, like the Left Behind series author, I think it's Tim LaHaye, they wrote about this stuff from their own point of view, and they made it accessible and democratically available to a large audience, thanks to these entertainment vehicles, novels, movies. A whole bunch of movie series, have come out for with the title Left Behind, right? Which deal with eschatology and the end of the world and the catastrophic elements and occurrences that happen with the end of the world. That's eschatological. The major points covered today in this very first class pertain to religious points of view regarding the end times. Religious points of view regarding eschatology and the future outcomes are inevitable. We need to talk about this. So, for instance, in one religion, Christianity, I look at what Catholics think and what evangelicals think. Right? Catholics and evangelicals are two different branches, two different denominations within the Christian religion. And their points of view are pretty different. They have similarities, they have common denominators, but they still differ with regards to certain points, certain theological points when it comes to the end of the world, with regards to eschatology. So, what do evangelicals believe about the end times? What do Catholics believe about the end times? Where do they intertwine? Where do they differ? That's basically the scope, summarizing this whole course that we're going to be taking. That basically summarizes it in one or two questions. But also we need to add a third question to this. What are the political actions that are taken by certain big players from those particular religious denominations within Christianity? How do they get politically involved? And how do their political implications affect our society and the policies that we draft? So those are a lot of very important questions to ask. Now, right away, within these first few minutes of the lecture, I'd like you to write down these take-home messages. Regardless of your beliefs, the world is bound to end at some point. And as cynical that may sound, it's very realistic. It's very pragmatic. So the world is bound to end. That's number one. Number two, different denominations will have different perspectives regarding future outcomes and biblical passages that are written in the same way. You know, the Bible is written the same way for Catholics and for evangelicals. We read out of the same Bible despite some different versions. NIV, NRSV, King James, Geneva Bible, doesn't matter. The message is the same. But the perspectives on the message and the interpretation of the biblical message may be different for Catholics and evangelicals, for example. Not to mention Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox. Number three, the last take-home message I want you to take note of. Different political players are making an impact, have made an impact over the past 2 centuries. And we're going to explore a lot of that. We're going to explore a lot of eschatological thinkers, theologians, political players, pastors that have really influenced our society and influenced our politicians, for better and for worse. And basically, we're going to look at those political players' decision-making processes with regards to eschatology and politics. Now, it would be interesting to look at my background, having said all that. I'm a scientist, I have my degree in biochemistry, but I have developed interest in the humanities. Hence, despite my interest for business, I did a few certificates just to sharpen my business acumen. I'm really a humanities type of person. And I'm glad to be a professor for this semester because as a humanities type of person, I deal with the human. And I like dealing with humans, that being you, the students. And I really like to share my passion, my newfound passion, relatively newfound passion for theology. Theology is very important. It's often an undercover science. It's a very versatile, and it's presented often under the scope of political science, sociology, psychology, mostly philosophy. But theology, nonetheless, is the queen of sciences, and eschatology happens to be my area of expertise when it comes to the whole ground covered by theology. So my course will focus on theology, as I mentioned, and I will look at these different denominations. And to recap, I'll basically look at these denominations as players in the political arena of the United States. And to give you an idea of the grading scheme, your participation will count for 10%. Quiz 1 will count for 10%. And it will be offered after, or actually, you're going to have to write it after week 4. You'll write quiz 2 after week 8, and it's also worth 10%. There will be a group project, which in that project, you're going to have 15% allocated to the writing of the project, not too long, and a 15% presentation, so 30% for that particular project. And lastly, a final paper will be due at the end of the semester, and that is going to be worth 40%. That's the largest chunk of your final grade. So that's how I'm going to break down the grading. Not too difficult. If you put in the work, you're going to get some good grades, and that's what I'm here for. Lastly, let's just talk about a learning contract for you and I, and I'll read it out for you. So students are expected to have completed the readings. You're going to have weekly readings. Not too long. Very not short either, but, pretty fair. So complete the readings before showing up to class so that you're mentally ready for it. You're expected to be always respectful of your classmates and of myself, the instructor, right? A climate of respect fosters and breeds lots of good learning. Let's call it that way, a good learning environment. And the instructor, myself, is expected to provide any help needed from your students, from their students, you, and will adopt a reasonable measure, or reasonable measures, plural, to pedagogically support you and to make sure that I'm there for you every time that you need. You can call me on my phone during the hours posted in the course outline, and you can also email me at any time, and I'll get back to you within 48 hours. On that note, thank you very much, and let's start Course 1 for this semester in full throttle. Cheers.